Welcome to the session on time management and self-organization. Thank you for spending your time with me to learn on how you can better organize yourself. For this session, I ask you to put away all second screens. So you may be watching this on a computer, put away your mobile phone. You may be watching this on your mobile phone. Please turn off all notifications so you can really spend the time here on this session. Additionally, I ask you to take a pen and a paper in order to write some notes. You will see later on why this is important. Of course, you do not have to write notes on this topic, but it might be something that is bothering you, and then you can write it down and not forget about it while you're listening to this talk. The goal of the session is to offer you new perspectives on how you can work on your personal productivity, how you can enhance it, and do basically more in less time. More importantly, it's about reducing your stress level. That means that you don't wake up at night because you forgot something, but you rather have a way to organize your thoughts and free your mind of some undone tasks. That shall all lead to you being a more productive person and maybe even to achieving more by setting a focus on the stuff that you are working on. Why self-organization matters? Well, it all starts with you. You might be a student now, working in a team. You are working later in larger teams and organizations. But it all starts with a personal productivity. And the things that you learn here, you can apply to teams and work in teams. And you can even spread it out to the work in organizations. Why me? Well, I'm very much into this topic for more than 20 years. I have a passion for this topic of self-organization. I'm actually I'm an educated software engineer, and I worked in IT projects where we applied all these techniques in the context of agile programming. And my professorship is actually about business process management, which is about organizing work within organizations. The method that we are talking about today is a method written down by David Allen. He wrote this famous book in 2001 on getting things done. And this is what he says about his own methodology 12 years later. Back then, he has already established a larger corporation, a business around his methodology. And he says, well, getting things done is not about getting things done. It's really about being appropriately engaged with what is going on. This is a person talking who is actually a businessman and a boss, and he has a lot of people that he can delegate tasks to. As you grow older in your professional career, it's not so much about what you do, but that you are engaged with, meaning that you have an overview of what things are going on and that you dedicate the right amount of time to the tasks that you should be engaged with. So what is it? It all comes down to a simple but easy to learn, hard to master, simple 5-step process. First of all, we need to capture the tasks that we are working on. We need to be clear on what we want to work on. Then we need to organize the tasks, and we can reflect on our system before we actually engage. And we will walk through these steps now. So first thing you should do is create an inbox. Now we come back to your pen and your paper that you have with you. This is basically your capturing mechanism, right? This method was invented in 2001 when there was no smartphones at hand. So people had notebooks, books in which they would take notes into. And whenever an idea hits your mind, you should go and take a note in your personal capturing mechanism. That can be pen and paper, it can be a notebook, it can be your smartphone. The most important thing is that it is your mechanism and it is consistent. That means that you have access to it all the time, that you have not too many different inboxes, right? You do not want to capture something in one mechanism here and capture something in one mechanism there, and then next time you capture something somewhere else, and then you lose track of what did you capture where, because you need trust in your system. So choose one inbox. Write an email every time something hits your thoughts, or make up a note within your notebook app on your mobile phone and write down whatever hits your mind. It's important that you can access it all the time, when you're at the beach, when you're in the bar, when you if you cannot sleep at night. So you need a way to get all your ideas out of your head so you can concentrate on the stuff that you actually should be engaged with. Whether you're writing an essay for your classes, or whether you're in a bar with friends, you should stay in the moment, stay in focus. And capturing actually means that whenever you have an idea, you can get it out of your head, and therefore rely on the fact that you will come back to this later on. One example for that is probably a grocery shopping list that you might have already, right? So whenever you have an idea of something that you want to buy, when you're at Mercadona, you would put it on your grocery shopping list. If it's something study or work related, you would put it maybe in another inbox, and if it's something private, you would maybe put it in a third inbox. You may have multiple inboxes, that is not the problem, but it should be a limited set, because you have to come back to them later on. And this is the moment where you clarify on your ideas. Not every idea that you have is a task that you should actually work on, right? So ask yourself, what is the idea actually? Is it a task? And if so, what is the result? So if, for example, the task, your idea is that you have to I have to write this essay for, have to do this assignment for my class. The result is definitely that you maybe have to write a paper that you hand in. What can you do about it? Well, you obviously have to write this, so you have to take the time and you have to find all the resources for it. And the next step may be to create an outline for the assignment, or to pick up a book from the library. So from your task, you derive the next steps to be done. But be aware, not all the things that come to your mind actually need to be organized and created in a new way so you can handle it later on. Some things can be done right away. For example, you might be, something that comes to your mind is, oh, I have to congratulate my friend to her birthday. Just do it. It's a short message maybe on your mobile phone. It's less than 2 minutes. It's not worth organizing. Just do it right away. All the little things should not go into our to-do management. They should rather be just done right away, because that helps you to free resources on other stuff. If it's bigger than 2 minutes, you should be thinking about when can you do it, and where should you be doing this task. We come to this in the next step. And you can think of, maybe, can you delegate this task? A lot of things do not need you to be done, but they need to be done. For example, take the dog for a walk. That is something that students that you can ask your family member to do for you, and it's not necessarily something that you do yourself. You need to do this at least once a day. You have your mechanism for capturing everything. A pen and a paper works well as long as you go through the paper by the end of the day and organize everything, fold the paper, throw the paper in the trash. That is also a system. But you need to come back to all the things that you have captured throughout the day. If you're not sure whether you can delegate something or whether you should organize something, think about it like this. This is a matrix made up by Dwight D. Eisenhower, former president of the United States, and he is famous for making up this decision matrix on whether he would work on something or not. And he works only on things, he said, that are urgent and important. For example, your assignment, it's due next week. it's definitely urgent. And it's important, only you can do it. But there are other things that you might be able to delegate. For example, you need to do grocery shopping. It's definitely urgent because you do not have anything to eat tonight otherwise. But maybe there's another person that you can ask to do the shopping. That means you can delegate your task and ask other people to do it. As you grow older and you grow a bigger network, there are always other people that you can ask to do stuff that you do not need to do yourself. If it is not urgent but important, that means you will have to work on it, but it is not due next week or this week, you can schedule it, meaning that you can find it as an organizational way to postpone it but come back to it later. And finally, the most important part is you can of course delete things. If you had an idea that doesn't, like, I want to learn free climbing, but then later on you find out it's not urgent and I'm not so much into this, so it's not really important, you can delete it. And even as you come back to tasks, you might change your opinion on whether something is important or not, and therefore you might later on delete something that you originally thought you would be doing, right? So don't get stuck with all the ideas. Have them, write them down, but at a later point in time you may also delete them. So you're not, otherwise you would always pile up work that you will never come back to work on. So now we know what we want to work on. The next thing we're going to do is organize the work that we need to work on. This is a moment where list systems come in. You have a list for grocery shopping, but what about a list for the projects that you're working on? Or a list of actions that you want to do related to the university? There's not this particular type of list system. There's nothing where you could say everybody has to have this. The list system is reflecting how you live your life. And it changes as your life changes. So as your life is changing, the way that you organize your to-dos will also change. Here are some ideas on how students and other people that I've interviewed organize their life. For example, some people think that it's important to have a shopping list, a studies list, a sports list, a list of things that they want to watch on YouTube, or things they want to do outdoors or events. Or another friend of mine who is a sales person, he organizes his life with his work life though, with stuff that are to do on the go, so while he is traveling, stuff he can do at work, right? Stuff he can do at home, homework, so working from home, and calls to make, so people that he has to call. So whenever you are in the right context at work, where you can meet other personnel, or for example in the car where you can make a lot of phone calls, you just pull up the list and then you start working on the items that you have organized in this way. Some people organize their week, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the weekends, and all the stuff that will be done next week. That is also a way. Or all the projects that you want to follow up on, right? So whatever works for you is okay. The most important thing is that every task finds a list, and every list has a moment in time at which you go to that list and work on the items that you have put there. Now you could ask, you could start to work on it, but David Allen says, well, there's one more thing to do, which is regularly coming back to your listing system and reflecting on it. Because it might be that by the end of the week, you're not sure whether you've done everything and whether you're prepared for the next week, especially if you had a very busy week and you're up to a holiday for the weekend. This is a moment where you can sit down, go through your list system, go to your calendar and check what were the topics that I've worked on the last week, what are the topics that I need to work on the next week, and at that moment this is a moment where you might be deleting or closing lists or creating new lists of things. You will reorganize, for example, things that you thought that you would be working on this week, but you would rather postpone them and work on next week. All these things, this is happening in such a reflection moment. So having such a list system is fine, but once in a while, and I highly recommend once a week, you go back, you look through all the items, look through all the stuff that you have done and all the stuff that you plan to do. Some things will come to your mind that you have forgotten about maybe. And this is the moment where you can write it all down, and then you can go off to your weekend, to your holiday, and free your mind from all this work context that otherwise maybe is still in your head. And now it's time to work on the stuff. Working or engaging with your task means that once you're in the right context, in the car, at work, whatever, and you have enough time to work on these items, you choose one of these to-dos. Now you have your list of to-dos. They are probably ordered by priority, but still some things are bigger, some are smaller, and you know you only have 15 minutes. So you pull out one of those tasks from your list and you work on them and you complete them. And it should fit the context that you're in, the time you have available, the priority level, and for also your energy level. Some people rather like to write essays in the morning, others love to work out papers at night. That is up to you. It's your personal choice, but be aware. It's possible to be very self-organized and still don't get things done. The problem is that if you have a list of tasks that you can work on, you might be pulling out the tasks that are easy and never get to the tasks that are really, really bothering you, and that eventually will eat up your day with all the easy small stuff, and you will never get to the really hard stuff. For example, you have a list of all the stuff you need to do at home. Clean the dishes, do the laundry, mowing, and doing your assignment. Well, Mark Twain says it like this: if it's your job to eat a frog, it's best to do it first thing in the morning. And if it's your job to eat 2 frogs, it's best to eat the biggest one first. Meaning that if you have a task that really is hard for you, pull that one out first. Work on the hardest task in the morning to get it done, because all the rest of the day will feel successful because you have done already the very most precious and most difficult task. And second, everything else beyond that will feel easier. There's even a book on this, a whole methodology for studying and how to best study, and it's called Eat That Frog. It's all relying on the fact that we all tend to cheat ourselves by finding ways to do some other work instead of doing the work that we should be working on, or the most complicated part. So we have pulled out a work item, and now we're starting to work on it. Of course, at this point, you should turn off all notifications. Let's assume we are not mowing, right? We are not washing dishes. We are writing an essay. Okay, then turn off all notifications. You don't want to get distracted by Instagram or whatever, emails. They are not important for this task that you are working on now. What can help, for example, if you're here in a work environment or at a library, might be binaural sounds. This is something that you put on your headphones, and it's not a music, it's rather like a wave, right? Like a wave sound from the ocean that helps you block out other people around you and focus really on the task. If you're not working at daylight, use lamps, bulbs that are between 4,000 and 6,000 Kelvin. This is a very white light, and it helps people to concentrate. This is why at work environments you would typically find this type of lamps. But if you are at home, if you have bought a bulb from IKEA, they typically have about 2,700 Kelvin, which is a warmer, more yellow light. It's nice to relax, but it's not so great to be concentrated on a task. This is especially important here at Gran Canaria after, let's see, 6 p.m. when the sun has set and you need light. You should be very conscious about whether you want to relax, that's totally fine, or you want to work on something. But if you want to work on something, stay with a very white light, and be aware that before you want to go to sleep, you should turn out the white light, because a white light also, while it helps you not to fall asleep, it also prevents you from falling asleep. So if you're writing your essay until, let's say, midnight, and then you want to go to sleep, you might take an hour in order to fall asleep if you have been using very white light until this point. And then one very powerful technique to force yourself staying focused on a task is called Pomodoro technique. It's from this here, from this small timer that you can set. And you set this timer, and as long as the timer is running, you're not standing up. You're not going on Instagram. You're not going to the toilet. You're not going for a smoke. You're not going to eat something. You're just here to work on the task. Within 5 minutes, you will see that even if it is hard in the beginning to get into the working mode, you will see that after a couple of minutes, you will be really deep into the work. And after 25 minutes, you will have accomplished quite a lot. It's often hard, especially if something is not a very attractive task, for example, writing the essay, if you don't like to write essays. It's often very hard to stay focused on the task, and people get easily distracted. In order to force yourself to stay on the task, this technique, and of course you can also use your mobile phone and set the timer there, this technique of getting into something 25 minutes straight is very, very powerful to force yourself into productivity. Some people, because you probably work on a computer, some people easily open a website here, open a website there. They, of course, need to Google something because it's part of the research that they are doing, but they can easily get distracted. There are browser plugins that you can use in order to block certain websites like Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, whatever, TikTok. So whatever you set as your personal distraction problem can be put into such a blocking list of websites, and once you are in a working mode, you just turn on this blocker, and the blocker will prevent you from just for a second being distracted and walking away to the wrong website, right? So now you're still with the task, we are concentrated, but the task is still too big. Well, if that's the case, the first thing you should do is break it down, right? You have to write this essay, but you do not know where to start, so you even don't know how to create an outline because you probably haven't really understood what the essay should be about. There's probably some introduction by the professor on how to go about this task. So what you do is you break down the task into many, many subtasks and the goals into many, many sub-goals until you found something that you can actually accomplish. And then you tickle back up and by working on all these smaller tasks. Be aware that some of the tasks might be infinite. For example, learning a new language is nothing that you can accomplish. It's something that you have to engage with all the time, and for years you learn and improve your language. But even studying for an exam, you cannot say when you are really done. So what you should do is you should identify those tasks and set a time frame for them, time boxing. That means that you decide that you will learn Chinese for the next hour or 1 hour a day, and that's fine, that's good enough. It doesn't matter how far you got because you're never going to complete it anyway, but it's important that you set a time frame, and then after an hour you say, okay, it's good for now. The same is true for exams, right? If you study for an exam, you of course need to go through all the chapters that need to be prepared for. However, it's hard to say when you're really perfectly prepared. Therefore, define time frames on how often and how long are you going to work on the task. Later in life, beyond school or university, one of the hardest challenges is to identify tasks that are infinite, because sometimes tasks look as if they could be accomplished, and then you start working on them, but over time you realize, okay, it's never really done because it's never perfect, for example. Then you have to make a choice, and then you have to identify it's an infinite task, and therefore I set a time limit to it, and whatever is the result at the end of this time is good enough. Of course, you should take breaks. It's not about working more, it's about working smarter, right? And one part of working smarter is that you should avoid, for any sake, to multitask. Multitask meaning that you're trying to learn for math while you're also doing your essay, right? Or that you're watching YouTube while you're watching this. Try to stay in the moment with one task, because your brain isn't made for multitasking, and the brain punishes you if you start multitasking, and in the end you will spend more time on either of the tasks as if you would have done one thing in the first place and then the other thing. And if you think you can do this quite good already, here's a challenge. Before you start a task, try to estimate how long it will take you to complete the task. And then, once you're done, go back to that and reflect on how much time did you actually take. Because by guessing or estimating how long a task will take and then reflecting back on it, you will get better the next time. And it will help you to find out how much can you accomplish in a given time frame. So in software engineering, how long does it take to create a database, right? In the very first time you cannot know because you haven't done it, and there might be multiple obstacles that you might face. But if you do it the second, the third, the fourth time, people will also ask you, how long does it take you to complete a certain task? And it's important for you that you can give a good estimation, not only for you, but also for others to plan with. Okay, so we have looked a lot into the personal part, right? We have means now to create personal productivity. But how does that play out for teams? Because usually you're working on tasks within teams, and you've probably seen some of those already if you're in a higher semester and you worked in groups on, for example, creating software. And here the very same principles apply. You can use the very same principles if some of these things here apply to you. First of all, you need one place, as a team, shared place where you collect and process the work. If somebody has a new idea on a feature that needs to go into a software product, for example, it should go into a backlog. A backlog is just a long list of ideas that people had according to the project. The backlog is yet just an idea store. Everybody can put something into the backlog. I can have an idea. You can have an idea. But this does not make it a task yet. There needs to be a person within the team that goes through the backlog once in a while and makes ideas to tasks. That means specifying what needs to be done, what is the result, what are the resources needed, maybe also how many people should work on it, and how long may it take. And then it becomes a real task. To create this, shared understanding is very, very important. It's not only about the time that it's needed, but also what should be delivered in the end, and what quality criteria shall it satisfy, right? You may have heard about the definition of done, which is when is a task actually done? Because if I create a task like build up a database, you may say, okay, I take the task and then it's done. And you come back and say, here's my task, is a result. And you have created a database, you have created users, you have created a schema on the database. But what I meant was basically just please create a database that I can access, and I create users and I create a schema in the next task. even worse, if I expected you to create a database, a schema, and and users on the database, and you have only created the database, right? So the discussion about when is a task actually completed is very important, especially within teams, because otherwise you can never agree on effort and the time that it actually takes to progress. And other people will also try to build up on whatever you delivered. So it's very important in teams that you have a shared understanding of a definition of done. So when is a task actually completed? And then you need an overview, right? So you can assign the tasks to the people. You need a way to track how far they got. And you need regular meetings in which you talk about these things. You may already, within software engineering projects, have had stand-up meetings. That means every day in the morning, everybody comes together and they're talking about what has he or she worked on yesterday and what is she going or he going to work on today. This is very important because it gives you an overview, it keeps you on track with what is going on, and it also you can express when, for example, you have taken a task and over the day you realize this is far too big. I cannot do this all by myself. Here, the stand-up meeting is a very great place to articulate, I need help. I need people to work on this with me, and for you not to get stuck with a problem that you cannot solve by yourself. A very nice way to do these things are Kanban boards. It's basically some columns that help you track the progress. Yeah, for example, here we have things that you have to do, things that are already in progress that need to be tested, if it's software code, for example, and once they are done, meaning maybe even deployed. Right? Definition of done, is it done when it's in code or is it done when it's deployed in practice, in production? There's no definite staging here. So you and your software team, you have to agree on which are the columns that you're gonna work on. You have a backlog column, next up item column, in progress, testing, tested, deployed, whatever. So you as a team, you have to first of all decide which of these steps you want to take, and then you have to create a space where everybody can look at it. In this sample here in my back, this is just some post-its. And in this case, everybody can go to the wall and see who is working on what. They can move their items from left to right, and therefore they can complete tasks. And everybody has an overview. If you're working in virtual teams, these Kanban boards, there are multiple software solutions that offer those Kanban boards for teams to collaborate on and have an overview on this. It works if you actually go back to it and actually are disciplined on working on it, right? So this Kanban board cannot be maintained by a single person in the team, but that needs to be maintained by everybody, and a daily stand-up meeting ideally will happen just in front of the Kanban board with everybody talking about the stuff that he or she is currently working on. And so the team can together decide on priorities and the next steps to be done. Okay, let's go. Let's debrief this session. The GTD method that I was talking about mainly is for your personal productivity. The most important idea is that you capture everything. Don't keep it in your head. Don't be bothered by stuff that you haven't thought about yet or haven't taken action on yet. By capturing it, you already took the very first step, because when you have this, when it's captured and you have a way to rely on the fact that you will clarify on the task later on, then your mind is already freed, right? So you wake up at night, something comes to your mind, you cannot sleep, put it on your mobile phone saying, remind me tomorrow at 5 or tomorrow at 10 a.m. because I know I'm going to be working on my computer and then I can take care of this, right? So capturing it is already the first step. Then you clarify what you want to do with it, you organize it, and you can engage. And once in a while, you should reflect on the system that you have and whether it's working for you. Just start with it. It doesn't need to be perfect in the first place. It's something that changes over time as you are changing. It's developing as you are developing. But every to-do app these days is basically following this methodology and supports you by doing this. There are some problems that never go away. And this is the struggle of discipline. You have to do it, right? And also you have the best to-do management doesn't help you getting it done. You actually have to get things right. Like the essay, even if it was well organized and well done, in meaning of well timely framed, that doesn't really mean that you get an A, right? It might be still a 3, because getting things right is a different story. And something that everybody struggles with is prioritization. At the moment, it might be quite easy because you only have like 5 classes, but later in life you have a job here, maybe a second job there, and you have a family obligation, and you have some other hobbies that you want to do. And prioritizing tasks is hard, and it will never go away. It's always hard. Don't try to, or don't feel bad about it, right? Because everybody struggles with prioritization. Okay, and now it's time to go back to the notes that you have taken throughout the session. Maybe you had like 3 things to put on the grocery list. Maybe you remembered one essay that you forgot to organize for the next week. Now it's on you. Take whatever came to your mind in the last minutes and put it on your to-do list and start organizing. If you want to get deeper into this, I recommend the book by David Allen, Getting Things Done. Also, there's a very nice book on how to do your studies and organize yourself for studies, which is called Eat That Frog, related to this idea of taking the hardest thing first. And if you think you can do even more in even less time, I recommend Tim Ferriss, a person who wrote a famous book 15 years ago called The 4-Hour Work Week. So he was proclaiming that he can delegate so much that in the end he will only have to work for himself about 4 hours in a week. You may try. I tried, but I never ever go down to 4 hours a week. Never ever. Anyways, if books are not your thing, there's a very nice podcast from some Norwegian and Swedish consultants. They are trainers for GTD method, and they have a very nice podcast in which they also in length explain the GTD method and their learnings and their struggles and what they see out there. And it's very inspiring if you want to get deeper into this. Thanks a lot for listening, and I hope you've found something in it for you.